It was a beautiful day, and Mummy Pig was outside doing her gardening work. And then Peppa and George came outside with their new toy dolls. So then Mummy Pig said, "I'm going back inside to cook us some lunch. You two play out here, but don't make a mess in my garden, okay?" Then she picked some fresh vegetables and went inside. Peppa had a Spider-Man toy, and George had his new toy dinosaur. Then Peppa said, "Superheroes are super strong. I wonder if they're even stronger than dinosaurs." And George replied, "No way! Dinosaurs are even stronger than superheroes, and mine even breathes fire." Then Peppa said, "Maybe you're thinking of dragons." But then suddenly, Peppa felt like she had to use the bathroom. So she put down her Spider-Man toy and went back into the house to take a pee. George went over to take a closer look at Spider-Man. Then he set down his dinosaur and thought, "I wonder which one would win in a fight." To be honest, they both look pretty strong. Then he turned around to take another look at his dinosaur. But when he did, it was missing. And then he heard a rumbling in the bushes. And out came his toy dinosaur. But this time it was real. And the dinosaur said, "George, of course I'm stronger than superheroes. Look at me, I'm huge." And then he let out a mighty roar. Then he took a step back to look at the Spider-Man doll, but it too was missing. And then, out of the bushes, the real Spider-Man appeared. Then Spider-Man said, "I'm a trained superhero with mutant spider powers. There's no way an old dinosaur can beat me." Well, the dinosaur didn't like what he was hearing, so he moved over and said, "Spider-Man, if you think you're the strongest, then let's have a battle right here in this garden." And then George moved in to say, Guys, this is Mummy's garden. If you're gonna fight, just make sure you don't break anything, okay?" Then the dinosaur said to George, "I'm gonna prove you right, that dinosaurs are stronger than superheroes." So George gave him a high five and wished him luck. The dinosaur started the fight by unleashing a tremendous roar. And then he used his giant tail to whack Spider-Man around. Spider-Man was impressed by the dinosaur's power, but he had some tricks of his own. He began to shoot spider webs at the dinosaur, hoping to catch him. And when he did, the dinosaur had a really hard time breaking free. Eventually, the dinosaur broke free and even complimented Spider-Man on his amazing skill. But the dinosaur had a final trick up his sleeve. He could breathe fire. And Spider-Man yelled, "Ow, that's really hot. Good thing I'm wearing this superhero suit, or I'd be burnt to a crisp." And then he moved in closer to say, "I think we've taken this challenge far enough. Dinosaurs are really strong." And the dinosaur replied, "Your web shooting skills are great. You really got me this time. In fact, I can't seem to get this spider web off of my head. Can you lend me a hand?" So Spider-Man used his special gloves to pick the spider web out of the dinosaur's hair. And then he said, "Man, this superhero costume is really tight. It always makes me want to use the bathroom." So Spider-Man went over to Mummy Pig's garden and began to take a pee. And George said, "Spider-Man, you can't take a pee in Mummy's garden. You gotta go in the house and use the toilet." Spider-Man replied, "Sorry, I can't wait. And isn't your sister Peppa using the toilet right now?" After Spider-Man was done, he said, "Well, I'd better get back to fighting crime in Lemon Pie Land. See you guys next time." And he left the garden. And then George thought, What am I gonna do about this mess in the garden? Maybe I can ask the dinosaur to help me clean it up. But when he looked back, the dinosaur was also taking a pee. And the dinosaur said, "Sorry, George, I just really had to go pee. And besides, your sister's probably still using the toilet." And then the dinosaur left the garden. So George was left alone in the garden, which was now covered in pee. And then Peppa showed up. Peppa looked at the garden and said, "George, you peed all over the place. Mummy's gonna be so upset with you." And George exclaimed, "Spider-Man and the dinosaur became real, and they're the ones that peed in the garden." But when George took a step back, the dolls were normal again, and they were exactly where he left them. So Peppa said, "Come on, George, I'll help you clean up your mess, and Mummy doesn't have to know about a thing." Peppa and George cleaned up all the Play-Doh pee until Mummy's garden was clean again. And then Peppa said, "George, if the toilet is busy and you really have to go pee outside, just don't take a pee in someone's garden, okay?" And then they went inside to eat lunch. George was playing with his new toy dinosaur, while Peppa was watching YouTube on her iPad, when George had a slightly uncomfortable feeling. Peppa stood up in her bed and said, "George, was that you?" And George said, "No, it was my dinosaur." Then George put on his dinosaur hat and went back playing with his new toy. Well, it wasn't long before George had the same feeling again, and he let off a few more farts. This time, Peppa stood up and said, "George, that's definitely you stinking up the room, not the dinosaur. If you have to go poo, you should go and do that." But George answered, "What about my toy dinosaur? I don't want anyone to play with it while I'm in the toilet." And Peppa said, "Don't worry, George. I'll make sure no one plays with your toy dinosaur when you're taking a poo." So George told his dinosaur to wait up because he'd be right back. When George arrived in the bathroom, he thought, "I've done this before. Maybe I can do this alone now." So he hopped up on the toilet and began to take a poo. Poo-poo time was going well, but then George thought he heard some laughter coming from the bedroom. He wanted to hurry up, so he pushed a little harder. But then he heard even more laughter. And he started to imagine what was going on in the bedroom. Maybe, George thought, Peppa is playing with my toy dinosaur. And maybe she's even wearing my dinosaur hat so that the dinosaur thinks that she's me. And maybe Super Mario showed up from the Mushroom Kingdom. And he brought one of those mushrooms that when you eat, you grow really big. And maybe my toy dinosaur ate the mushroom, turned into a super big dinosaur, and now everybody is having fun in my bedroom. So George jumped off the toilet and ran back to his bedroom. But when George returned, everything was still the same. His dinosaur was right where he left him, and Peppa was still watching YouTube on her bed. So he went back to playing with his toy dinosaur, when Peppa stood up and said, "George, did you take a good poo? And what's that smell? There's something stinky in this room." And George said, "Really? I can't smell anything. Maybe it's just your imagination." So Peppa went back to watching YouTube videos when she found a really funny episode of Lemon Pie Land, and she started to laugh. But then she noticed that she had to go pee. But then Peppa thought, "I can hold it in a little longer. I'm having way too much fun to stop now." So she went back to watching and laughing at her favorite YouTube episodes. But then the feeling came back even stronger. She really had to go pee. So Peppa decided to watch only one more episode and then go to the bathroom. But the episode was so funny, she accidentally peed her pants. And just then, Mummy Pig showed up in the bedroom, and she said, "It's kinda stinky in here. Do either of you have something you want to tell me?" And Peppa replied, "It's definitely not me. Maybe you want to ask George." Then George quickly took a step back and said, "It's definitely not me either. It's probably this dinosaur." So Mummy said, "Well, if you have nothing to tell me, I guess I'll be gone." And she left the room. Peppa and George went back to their activities, pretending that nothing had happened, even though the room was now getting really stinky. But a short time later, a special agent from the potty police showed up, and she wanted to get to the bottom of this stinky problem. So she went up to George and started her investigation by asking him, "Did you use the toilet recently?" And George replied, "Yeah, I took a poo, and everything went well." "Really?" said the potty police. "Why don't you turn around?" So George slowly turned around, and that's when the potty police spotted the unfinished poo. And she said, "George, you haven't finished pooing yet. That's why this room is so stinky." And George answered, "But it wasn't my fault. When I was on the toilet, I thought Super Mario came to visit me, so I had to run back here." But the potty police replied, "George, you have to finish taking your poo before you play. Come on, let's go back to the bathroom and finish the job." So George and the potty police entered the bathroom, and the potty police said, "George, when you're taking a poo, don't think about anything else. Just concentrate on what you're doing and try to finish the job." So George got onto the toilet again and tried to push out some poo. And the potty police said, "Don't push out too hard. Just try to relax, and it will usually come out on its own." After a short while, George looked over and said, "Okay, I think I'm done now." But the potty police said, "You're not done until you finish the paperwork." And she handed him a bundle of toilet paper so he could wipe his bum. George did a really good job wiping his bum, and then he threw the dirty toilet paper into the toilet and gave it a flush. Afterwards, George washed his hands with soap, and the potty police said she was really impressed at his toilet training. Next, the potty police returned to the bedroom so she could talk to Peppa. But Peppa said, "I'm already toilet trained, so there's no problem here." But the potty police wanted to take a closer look, so she said, "Can I have a peek behind your iPad?" And Peppa thought, maybe all the pee is dried up now, and I won't get in trouble. But when she removed her iPad, there was still a giant pee stain on her dress. So Peppa said, "It wasn't my fault. I had to go pee, but then I watched a really funny YouTube video, and I accidentally peed my pants." And the potty police answered, "Peppa, when you feel like you have to go pee, don't wait. Go straight to the toilet and you'll avoid having accidents." So Peppa went to the bathroom to finish taking her pee. In the bathroom, the potty police told Peppa, "When you have to go pee, don't worry about your YouTube videos. You can always put them on pause and watch them later." So Peppa got onto the toilet and took a nice long pee. After she was done, she flushed the toilet, washed her hands, and then went to the laundry room to change her clothes. George was already waiting for them in the laundry room, and the potty police said, "When you have an accident, you have to change into clean clothes and put your old ones into the washing machine. So Peppa and George changed their clothes, and the potty police was very happy. Well guys, if you enjoyed watching this toilet training episode, give this video a thumbs up right now. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.